Hallelujah. We finally made it. We finally made it here. I am super, super, super pumped. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aswan Crookshank. I'm your one and only Move Swiftly speaker, former collegiate football player, and current author of 5 books, all surrounding about all talking teamwork. Football player and current author of 5 books, all surrounding about all talking teamwork. Football player and current author of 5 books, all surrounding
The
about all
echoes.
talking
We love
teamwork. Yeah, there's the echo. There's the echo. Current author of 5 books, all surrounding
The
about all
echoes.
talking
We love
teamwork. Yeah, there's the echo. There's the echo.
We got to close all those windows.
As you can see, guys, we have been going through some technical difficulties, like real technical difficulties, but I'm happy we finally made it.
We here though.
Yeah, I'm happy we finally made it here. And this is a quick lesson to start off, just putting it out there now. Always come early. Whenever I do speaking engagements, whenever I go out to workshops, go out to high schools to do workshops, this is the reason I'm always arriving like an hour early, 2 hours early, to make sure all the technical difficulties are set. I started getting ready for this live about 2 hours ago, and I'm still, as you can see, am brand new to the technical world and all that stuff. So anyway, all that all that's being said, let me bring on my guest. So just to give you guys a briefing on what these live streams are going to be all about, it's going to be very conversational, very much one-on-one. We want to take questions. We want to hear from you guys. We want to talk about how to navigate NIL, want to talk about how to navigate the transfer portal, something that has created so much chaos within the college football landscape, within college athletics in general. So we'll be doing these regularly, and I promise you by next week, I'm going to have this live stream thing down packed, and I'll be like a pro at it. I promise you. I promise you. So with all that being said, I gotta bring on my guest today, because you guys heard me say this. If you listen to my podcast, the Move Swiftly podcast, you've heard me say on multiple occasions, ABC, always be connecting, right? And it just so happened that my guy Stephen Davis Jr. would join the networking group, or the group that my guy Todd, one of my main men, former teammate of mine, Taj Deshaun. Shout out to you, Taj. He put together a community where it's a lot of like-minded people, a lot of former athletes, people coming together, just talking about their businesses, figuring out ways in which they can help and stuff like that. So Mr. Stephen Davis Jr. came in and he was talking about the business that he just started. He put a post in the community. I reached out, and it just so happened that there's just a great deal of synergy between us. And we're just, super pumped to have you on, man. So Mr. Stephen Davis Jr., welcome to the live streams. Glad. Thank you for your patience, first of all, and welcome aboard.
Man, thank you, man. It's been great to connect with you so far, man. I appreciate that you brought me on to the show today, and really kind of talking about this fun topic about NIL and the transfer portal. But yeah, man, I feel like, there's a lot of us in this community putting in the work to try to support our athletes and former athletes. And I'm just excited to be here, man.
Yes. And so, with all that, why don't we I'm going to give you the microphone for a second. And let's talk a little bit about what you've done as a player, where you played, what you do now, like what got you to this place now, to what you're doing, to where you're starting your own business, not only running your own business, but also you work at a university, a Big Ten university at that, the University of Minnesota. So I'll give you the microphone for a second to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I played football at the University of Minnesota 4 years. I came in as a freshman. I got the opportunity to start and had a pretty prosperous career, ended up being a senior captain when I left. And then for me, like most of us, had the dreams of pursuing the NFL. It did not work out in my favor. And that was the biggest transition of my life, trying to figure out the pieces of what to do next and how do I move forward. But that really kind of propelled me to find my passion and purpose of helping others and giving back, truly to try to connect people to the resources and opportunities that are available for us, as we are not a football player or not a basketball player, or not a baseball player anymore, but still have an identity that we can create and rebirth. So my mission and purpose has really been about how do I help and how do I serve others. It led me to come back to the University of Minnesota, trying to connect people back to those resources that were promised to us in our living rooms with our parents, and really trying to fulfill those to help people in their lives to feel fulfilled in their career and in their family and whatever they're trying to do. Um, so much so that I've been doing this for about 7 years at the University of Minnesota, just trying to help people at the Alumni Association, where I've had the opportunity to connect and enhance lives. But I wanted to take it a step further, specifically for former athletes, and step out on faith and use the skill sets that I've learned, getting some life coach certifications, and really being able to support athletes one on one and in group settings to help them in their transition, connecting them to their identity and what they truly are and what they truly want to be, helping them to strive higher, after sports, and specifically to connect to this broader ecosystem of people that are trying to support them as well, mostly former athletes. Because probably in the same thing,
Yeah.
we went through that transition alone. It kind of felt like you're in this sport, and then everything's handed to you when you're in the sport, but then when you're done, nobody's telling you what to do anymore. And for most of us, it's like, well, I don't know what to do because nobody's giving me that direction anymore. And I
Mhm.
don't want people to feel like they are lost by themselves. And there is this community of people that we can connect to and really
Yes.
help them in that journey.
Yeah. So what year did you graduate from college and were trying out for the pros?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2008, and tried out for the pros. It didn't work out in my favor, like as I mentioned, and it was a recession, so it was hard to find a job after that point too. So
Hmm.
I bounced around a lot of different places, and part of my story is like my first job didn't come until I actually connected with somebody. Like I
Yeah.
connected with a former player. We talked. We didn't talk about a job. We just talked about life. We talked about what's next, and he gave me some tips and tricks. And lo and behold, he owned the organization and he gave me a job. And to me, that was just like, okay, this is an eye opener. Like, how do
Yes.
I get into this more?
Yes. Now, I say it all the time because this is a relationship driven business, and it's not just a football thing. When we're talking about relationships and we're talking about how to leverage those relationships, NIL it creates a huge advantage. It creates opportunities for you to build relationships. So much of what gets talked about when it comes to this topic is the big deals, the Shador Sanders, right? The Caleb Williams or the Caitlin Currys. I always call it Caitlin Curry because I'm thinking of Steph Curry, the Caitlin Clarks, right? But the big deals are the ones that get broadcasted by the national media. But what a lot of people don't understand is this can be an opportunity for you to create paid internship opportunities while you're still playing. Like you, my second year in college, I tore my ACL and I had to move back home and get a job. And that job I got because it was a player that I played with in youth league had a job at a gym, and he's like, "Look, I'll just hook you up," and we got to moving from there. So I definitely understand your point, and I'm hoping that current athletes who are listening to us now realize how much time they could be wasted if you're waking up on a Saturday morning playing video games. You need to be using the connection device that you have to be connecting with folks because you have that opportunity. And that kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you about is when 2021 is when the rule came into place. How was that like affecting your work or affecting the way you go about doing your job when these rules came in place where athletes are now able to get paid off their name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just
Mhm.
want to say I'm excited that opportunity has presented itself.
Yes.
Being a former athlete, I am an advocate for them, taking advantage and, making money off their name, image, and likeness because the universities have taken advantage of that for a very, very long time.
Hmm.
Um, and I would say now, since 2021, since it has been released, I think it is still a very confusing market. I don't think everybody understands the nuances and the ins and outs.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah. Uh,
And he's like, I actually wearing the shirt now. It's confusing, brother. It's
Yeah,
confusing.
nobody really understands how much of it really is accessible. What are the next steps that you can take, and
Yeah.
how do you get involved? From my standpoint, at the Alumni Association, where I've been there, like I say, 7 years, I get to focus more specifically on all alumni and helping to engage and connect them to different opportunities,
Hmm.
whether it be events, support from a volunteer standpoint, really building that relationship so that they feel that pride and spirit to give back to the university. Knowing what I know about NIL is that the opportunities that present themselves are specifically geared towards the student athlete specifically. If you give to that to the collective or to that student athlete, it's not going to the university at all. It's going straight to that athlete, and that is great. But the difference between what the universities and athletic departments are wrestling with is are these donors going to then still have that relationship with supporting like the major universities needs. You know, if that donor has been giving to the university for certain buildings or certain things that are going to support a student or an athlete or just like a department, but now they want to gear that towards I'm going to give to NIL, then it creates a new dynamic because the university is not getting any of that money, and I'm not mad that they're not getting any of that money, but it does create a dynamic in regards to how do they create strategies and what are they pushing out to constituents in order to get them to give back to the university or maybe even to the students.
Yeah, actually, that brings me to, and I hate to cut you off on this, but that brings me to another point. I didn't even plan on bringing this up because I just finished reading a book titled "Billion Dollar Ball." It's by the name of the author is I'm blanking on his name right now, but he talked about how these alumni that you're referring to, how serious they are when it comes to giving money. And just on what you said, it brought up a completely different dynamic that I didn't think about, and this is why I have people like you on the show, so I can learn some things myself. But what has the what has the challenge been with them? Have you dealt with any like angry alumni that says, "Look, I'm not giving to you guys if the money's going straight to the athlete, or I want the money to go to university"? Have you experienced any of that at all?
I would say not as of yet. I think
Right.
everybody has their own passions that they want to support and they want to give back to a university or institution.
Right.
I think trying to understand, the balance of what they're going to continue to support moving forward, I think is going to be challenging, especially because, in my opinion, with those big donors who have a lot of money, who wants to support the university and wants to support certain things at the university, how sustainable will it be to rely on that moving forward,
Right.
specifically with the NIL? Because right now, universities or the athletic department is not allowed to give to the NIL collective, not allowed to give money to the student athletes. That is all built by donors, fans, and alumni. And these collectives are collecting money from these people in order to sustain the opportunity for these student athletes. So you're asking $1 million, $billion donor to give money to an 18, 19-year-old and every year continue to do that. Like,
Right.
I don't know how sustainable that will continue. As far as like, you were giving to the building of the athlete facility where you can see your name, you can see the work, but
Yes,
now
and
you're
it
giving
affects multiple athletes, future generations,
right,
recruiting, all that.
right, and then now you're being asked to give to a certain player,
hmm
hoping that they would come to your school and help you win.
hmm
But I also feel like there's a weird power dynamic that can come with that. As you think about from the pro ranks, in anybody who you may have heard this before, they
Right.
go buy a ticket and then they're mad if LeBron James is not showing up to a game because, like,
Right.
hey, I spent my money, I'm paying your salary. Just
Yeah,
imagine
exactly.
them saying something like that times 10 to a student athlete at college ranks because they paid to their NIL collective for this athlete to come. And if they're
Yes.
not producing, social media is just going to go crazy. And this is
Right.
a kind of the effects that I'm looking at as well.
Right. And I actually make the argument in my book, and I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback from you. You could tell me if you agree with it or you don't. But I do believe that if you have a high NIL valuation, you should be required to give a percentage back to the university. There should be something that could be negotiated, even if it's something that the player says, look, I want to give back to these pre-med students. I want to give back to these pre-law students. I want to give back, like Blake Corum does a great thing with his turkey drive. Caitlin Clark, I almost said Curry again, by the way. But Caitlin Clark does a cool thing with her foundation and make sure the money goes
And
to the
she is
foundation.
like Curry, though.
Yeah, she does feel like Curry. And this is the crazy part. I thought that was her actual name. I
Yeah.
really did. I remember that day the video came, the thing came out in the championship with her and Angel Reese. I thought that was her actual name was Caitlin Curry. And then I was like, wait, no, it's Caitlin Clark. So, but she's balling like him, so I guess she earned that nickname.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can tell me if that would be like so far fetched for someone like a Caleb Williams say, all right, I'm gonna take 1% and give it back to maybe some of the pre-med students. I don't know how it would work because I'm not directly in it, but just kind of putting that out there and then seeing how that would work.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like from a student athlete standpoint, somebody gives you a check to represent their brand, and you're a student athlete. And just think about it from the time that we
Yeah.
played. We didn't get much of any financial support to
Well,
be
I
able
mean,
to
I
live.
was I was D2 in FCS. You were
Right.
Big Ten. I didn't get shit.
Well,
You,
I'm gonna tell you at the D1 level,
oh yeah.
we
The
didn't
D,
get much either.
yeah, we didn't get much, but I'm sure, yeah, because back then you weren't on that. You didn't have no Big Ten network, so you
Right.
probably were. Yeah, I got you.
Right. So, I mean, from the standpoint of like, yes, we are supported. We got, food and training table. You have a scholarship to take care of your books,
Right.
and all that stuff to be a student or be a student on campus. However, the basic necessities of like going to get your own groceries and food, like for the most part, you're getting, in my time, we were getting about $200 a month extra money for us to be able to use. But that's not a lot if you think about it to sustain an entire month. Now, a student athlete can make money off of their name, image, and likeness, and they can find opportunities to make some extra money, build some internships, whatever that may be. They have all this funds,
Mm-hmm.
and you're an 18, 19-year-old. You don't really know what to do with all that money.
Right.
I find it highly unlikely that they would give back to the university at that point because they're like, well, no, this is my time to take advantage of this opportunity and grow my own personal brand and build the finances that I want. That
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see it very likely that they will want to give back to the university. However, part of it too is that because it has been kind of opened up in this very unregulated way,
Right.
like these athletes are getting a lot of stuff, and I don't think they really understand the true dynamics of like taxes and all these other things that come with it. I know some of those institutions are trying to provide some of that financial literacy and tax and lawyer information, so they're not taking advantage of. But
Right.
once again, 18, 19-year-old trying to learn all of these dynamics of being an amateur, but being treated like a professional in a certain extent with getting, finances going your way,
Mm-hmm.
and not really knowing what to do with all that.
Well, I'm glad you said that because when I put it in the book, that's kind of what I had in mind is to take that percentage and make it so it's an accountant, someone that could put their money to work to where that percentage turns into maybe, let's say they put $1,000 in some percentage that turns into like $3,000 because you're putting the money to work. You're putting the money towards financial literacy classes. You're putting the money towards doing things that are going to triple the money as opposed to spending it on a Rolls Royce or spending it on gold chains. And I know what I would have
But
spent
you
it
know
on.
they're gonna do that though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I know for sure. I know, like me, I would have blown so much of it. My 18-year-old self would have blown. So I accepted that they're gonna do that, but it's a matter of okay, we know they're gonna do it, but let's try to require something because right now it's like you said, it is actually the wild wild west, and that
Yeah.
actually brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you about is if you can go back to 2008 and that your time at the Minnesota. How would you have taken advantage of the rule now? How would you? What do you think things? What do you think would have changed for you for your college experience, the whole nine? And you can even take it back to high school because this is actually affecting high school more than it is college
Yeah.
because now you don't know where you're going to play. You got guys committed, decommitted, players transferring. So how do you think your playing career would have changed if this rule was in place?
I mean, yeah, it definitely would have shaken a lot of things up and forced me to like look at the opportunities to brand myself and set myself apart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, to a certain extent, it creates this selfish nature amongst the
Yeah.
team. Like everybody is, focused on winning. However, when you add money into the equation at a young age, I feel like it's going to create this idea where I need to kind of fend for myself and figure out how to get mine. And not
Yeah.
to say that I would have been that way, but I think, I definitely would have taken advantage of the requests that I've gotten before to like, hey, come sign this picture or this jersey and like,
Right.
give me some money for that, or show up in appearance for a certain brand or organization that wants to like bring some go for athletes. Like you wouldn't take that for free anymore. You'd be like, okay, well, how are you gonna set me aside and pay for this?
Mm-hmm.
I will say, like back when I was there, the NCAA had the EA Sports NCAA football game, and I was in that game 3 times. it's funny now looking back on this because I remember when the settlement came about that game, I
Yep.
was able to get some
O'Bannon, was it
funds.
O'Bannon or something like that?
Yeah, I was able to get some funds, but just thinking about like, man,
Mm-hmm.
my face is on a video game and I'm not getting nothing from this. Everybody's buying this game,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't make money off of that. So my mind and my reality was really thinking about it, if I'm thinking about this now, it's like, what are the chances or the opportunities where either my jersey is being sold, my likeness is being used in a commercial or used in a game. People would like to, reach out to me to sign autographs and come show up and make appearances, taking advantage of all of those opportunities to support myself in that regard. But I think it still would have probably been hard to navigate without having like someone to help us connect the dots with all of that,
Yeah.
because you're going into, obviously at that point, like a business. You're
Yeah.
setting yourself up as a brand and as a personal business, and trying to learn like how to do that in a way that makes sense to bring in the money and
Uh,
not squander it all, because a lot of our players was trying to get fast for support, and they were buying TVs with all that stuff. So just
mm-hmm.
imagine, you're making thousands of dollars, $100,000, and and you're at college, you're gonna blow it on some stuff that is not gonna really help you if you don't have that support, and that that person is giving you a little bit more advice about how to use that money in a correct way to set yourself up for the future.
Now, I started a Division II school. I tore my ACL, and then I was a walk on. So I wasn't on your level athletically. I didn't have aspirations of playing in the NFL, right? So I was pretty much a scout team player when I played football. So I know for me, I would have loved it because I knew I wasn't going to be playing the game for money, and I would have been able to kind of use it as a paid internship opportunity. I'd have been using it as, especially when I tore my ACL, I've been approaching gyms and saying, look, I got my ACL torn. Let's shoot some content with me rehabbing and all that kind of stuff. But you, as someone that was obviously starting, at a Power 5 conference, do you feel like there would have been distractions? Do you feel like some of the players would have just been like, look, I ain't doing this, or I'm not, it's taken away from what I got to do on the field for me to get the real bag, which is the NFL, for me chasing this chump change compared to what I could be making in the league. What are your thoughts about that?
Most definitely. I feel like
Yeah.
it definitely would create distractions, because you're thinking about like yourself and
Yeah.
what are the opportunities that you can set yourself up for, getting some money or getting some funds and getting your brand kind of growing that. So like, to a certain extent, you want to, support the team and, help to do your part to collaborate and win games. But if things aren't going the way you want, you're like, well, hey, I'm making money regardless. I'm gonna be all right. And I'm not saying that would be everybody's mentality, but I for sure think a vast majority will skew towards thinking about themselves in that situation,
Mm-hmm.
which is not bad. But given the fact that you know the college landscape is built on amateurism, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and has been taking advantage of the student athletes on an amateur standpoint, making money off of their backs. The fact
Yes.
that you open that door up now, like,
Yes.
of course, you're going to be like, I'm taking advantage of this.
Yes. Yes.
So it does create a new dynamic as part of the team,
Yeah.
especially as you look at certain players who are making way more than another player,
Mm-hmm.
and how that makes them feel. If like, well, I feel like I'm better than that player, but they're making more money than me, like I should be able to make the same amount of money, and what that creates in the locker room too. Like, it's different power dynamics. It's the same in the pro levels too, but in the pros, you're going into that situation knowing this is what it's going to look like, and you get paid based upon what you can produce on the field. Right now, in the college landscape, you're getting paid based upon what they think you can produce on the field. So that's the totally different, kind of equation there.
Well, that and your name,
Yeah,
I can't imagine what it must be like for the Texas quarterback. I love the story. I feel like it's a story that's too perfect. The fact that it's the Arch Manning it's the son who didn't make it. Like, it's the
yeah,
brother who didn't make it. His son is now going to be like the best out of all of them. The story is just so great, but he
right,
hasn't been on the field yet. If you look at the NIL valuation, he's at the top of the list,
right.
and it's
And
because of
Bronny James, the same thing.
LeBron James too. It's because of his name.
Right.
So, how does that really help a locker room. Really.
Exactly. Like you come in as a freshman and you're like the top evaluation from an NIL standpoint. You haven't played yet. You haven't earned your stripes, but everybody's looking at that person because of their name, and they're bringing money and attention because they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't matter what they produce at this point because it's based upon a evaluation of their potential and what they can bring to the school. But like if you've been there for 3 years, you've been working your butt off and like you in line to be the starting point guard, but then this guy comes in, he's making all his money.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine what the dynamics of that is.
It just the demise. I could only imagine, especially knowing the locker rooms I've been in and the tension, because we got a lot of alpha males. Everybody trying to take your spot regardless.
Yeah.
So you start throwing in some numbers, now it just turns it up a whole notch.
Right.
And that actually brings me to one of the final time. And I see a couple questions here, so we'll get to it. But one of the last things I want to talk to you about is if you were the decision, I'm going to put you on the spot now, Steve. If you were the decision maker for all of this, how would you change the way the rule is being pulled out or used, I should say?
I mean that's a really great question, and I also feel like it's a hard question to answer just because like we're not in the room with a lot of these decisions are being made, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do know, however, that the NCAA have rolled this out in a very unregulated way that is creating just like a wild, wild west to a certain extent,
Yes.
where players are allowed to transfer, in weird times. The fact that you can transfer before the bowl season is something that's just beyond me, in regards to like how to help a team. But there also are rules that don't allow like the institutions to get involved
Yeah.
with supporting the NIL.
Mm-hmm.
However, they put rules in small little rules in place to say like technically an institution is not supposed to use NIL as part of the recruitment process and
Mm-hmm.
provide a promise to a student athlete that they're going to make a certain amount of money when they come to a school. But we've seen a lot of that happen already, and there's a lot of things that are just going crazy. And because of that, the schools who have the means and the resources, and
Yeah.
right now the donors to give, they're gonna come out on top on this.
Mm-hmm.
Where some of these other schools are just gonna maybe fall by the wayside if they're not able to sustain that level of support and money from their donors. So I think my standpoint would be like, how do you create some rules and regulations in regards to make it fair for
Right.
all the institutions to be able to support this, allow the athletes to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, but don't allow it to really be a free agency. I would say in a standpoint
Mm-hmm.
where in this school, if you have $1 million, you can get the best players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make it fair for other schools that are trying to fight in that same conference and have the opportunity for that player to come and make a huge opportunity and do well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But that player is only looking for a certain amount of money, and
Right.
that only the top tier schools have that money.
Right.
So what does that do to the recruiting landscape? Right now, we've already seen it because you get a top recruiting class, and that doesn't really matter because the transfer portal allows a lot of these like seasoned athletes that
It
all
does.
went to Alabama, didn't get to play their first year. They're
Mm-hmm.
transferring and going to these other schools, and they're making $1 million or something less than that. And they may sit or they may play, but you're getting a top tier player
Right.
where you got a freshman that just came in. They're probably not going to see the field for a couple years, and then that player is like, "Well, I don't want to play here anymore. I'm going to
Yeah.
transfer." And it just creates this weird dynamic. But I think the power is really sliding towards football and basketball because of that,
Yep.
and these other non high tier sports where you got track and field, you got hockey, you got swimming, gymnastics, all these other sports.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have to continue to have to fend for themselves because these other bigger sports are taking over the attention, and the financial resources are going to pour into that because the institutions are going to be like, well, if we want to make money, we want to succeed, we have to be great in these areas. And in order for us to be great in these areas, we have to have NIL money. So
Yeah.
I just think, there needs to be some balance in this. There needs to be a little bit more, not restrictions, but more rules and allowance of, transferring to different schools and when that can actually occur.
Right. Right.
And more restrictions and I guess sanctions too for schools that are breaking the rules in regards to the recruiting,
Hmm.
because that was something that was already under the table before, like somebody
Exactly.
doing a violation to bring somebody in, buying them a car, setting up their family. But now you got NIL part of this. They're like, oh, okay, we can do this even more. So I
Exactly.
just think it just creates this weird dynamic in our landscape.
Yeah, I think you nailed it in regards to the transfer portal. It's again, I was a person that transferred from D2 to D1. All right, but I when I got to this D1, you saw a lot of guys that were at these bigger schools. They failed a drug, even actually no, at both D2 and these FCS programs, they fail a drug test. Next thing you know, they're on a full scholarship at an FCS program. They go somewhere, they don't play. Instead of competing, they leave and they're on full scholarship at another program. We've given them that option, and now that you made the transfer portal a situation where you don't even have to sit out and there's money involved, it's like, what exactly are we doing? Or what exactly are we teaching the kids? What exactly are we teaching them about loyalty? So you mean to tell me you're telling them to go get a job? The minute you don't like the job in a week, what, you're gonna just be out? That's the message we're gonna send.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying? So
here's
I
the other
want
part about it
players to
too.
get help, but yeah, go ahead, go ahead. Because
Yeah, and the other part about it too is that how it's been rolled out so far, like each state gets to make their own rules and schools get to make their own rules on it too. So
Mhm.
it's not consistent. Like in Texas, it may be different as far as like how you can, support NIL and what NIL can do compared to Minnesota, because the
Mhm.
state and the federal level are getting involved in this. And I think it's just becoming a mess, from a standpoint of people's opinions, the polarization of it, from a standpoint of like supporting this.
Mhm.
Um, and it sucks because I feel like to a certain extent that there was this opportunity to do it and do it in a way that could support the athletes and be sustainable. But right
Yes.
now, you just don't know where it's going. You
Yeah.
don't know where it's headed, and what the NCAA will truly do to help, regulate and support this in a way that can continue to make it sustainable. Because, like I mentioned before, I just don't feel like from a standpoint of using the collectives as the main engine to support
Hmm.
this will be sustained, because you got to continue to ask people to give money every year to give to a 18, 19-year-old. I don't know how likely someone will want to continue to do that compared to
There's no
supporting the
ROI.
big.
Where's the ROI? I
Yeah,
mean, just think like a businessman. Where's the ROI in somebody giving an 18 or 19-year-old kid $1 million? Like, even if it's Archie Manning. Like,
right.
where is the, tell me where they're making the money? What is his jersey sales going to make the money? Like, what exactly is the ROI in doing that? And if people would just use their good old fashioned common sense, it wouldn't have rolled out in such a messy way that it did. And the thing about it, again, like you said, you're talking about giving it to kids that have no concept of financial literacy. They're athletes, they're great athletes, and they love to play a sport. And this is, I've done deals with college athletes, and some of the things they don't necessarily know how to go about doing this, how to go about doing this, because they just aren't ready yet. So to
Yeah,
just give them the money, there's no actual ROI. And in business, I'm just telling you guys, everyone listening to me, in business, this is what investors care about. They care about ROI one, ROI two, ROI three. That's it. They want a return on their investment
yeah,
in financials. That's why
yeah,
they sponsor. That's why they give money to universities, because the universities can get tuition from people, and now they get their money back. So I know it sounds like they're sponsoring or they're giving money, but they're seeing how they get their money back. I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland, where Under Armour was built, and I was there when he actually built the uniforms, put the uniforms in place. It was like a marketing. It was like a marketing engine for the company. And now look at where the company's gone. He's
yeah.
making his money back on all those sales.
Yeah, and I would say a lot of businesses. There are some businesses that are getting involved. I would say more to the medium to small businesses are getting involved because they're trying to build their brand and support the university to a certain extent. But you're not
Right.
seeing a lot of major corporations, and we have a lot of them here in the Twin Cities.
Right.
We don't see a lot of major corporations getting involved to that level, and I think specifically because they already have an established brand. They don't need an 18, 19-year-old to help them push any of their products or services.
Right.
So the likelihood of bigger corporations supporting this, I don't know. It could change, but it feels far fetched. And the fact that people have you know dispensable funds to support this every year is also something I think is far fetched from a business standpoint. Because to your point, it's the ROI. Like how
Right.
do they get this back? And,
And
and
that
think,
actually makes me. I didn't plan on even bringing this up, but just when you said that, it made me think of this. Has the fact, so you're in Minnesota, and that's the Big Ten, and they have an actual Big Ten network that's on TV. Has that
yeah,
made any change at all, or has that affected the way alumni or investors speak about the university? Like, does the program's value go up because they're part of the Big Ten and because they have a network at all? Like, how does that affect it?
absolutely. The Big Ten is power conference. As you can see, a lot of these colleges are starting to combine in maybe 3 or 4 major
Right.
conferences, and the
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten is amongst the top. As far
Okay.
as like reputation, brand, money, all the things that come with it. They're continuing to grow. They just brought in a bunch of West Coast teams coming in next year.
Right.
So absolutely, the Big Ten is a great place for that. But still, it's unbalanced in the Big Ten as far as like who's doing well in
Who's
NIL.
going to be right? Who's going to be doing well? I mean, I don't even. They just and we'll get to you guys' questions in a second, but I have to bring this up. But just think about this. All right, you have Chip Kelly, who was the head coach at UCLA, is leaving to go to Ohio State to be an offensive coordinator
Right.
because Ohio State is what, the Big Ten, and they got the dough.
Yep.
What else needs to be said? One is a West Coast team, the other is a Midwest team that's going to be on TV regularly.
Yep. Yep. I know.
It's about the money.
He's probably also looking at it too. Like if Ryan Day doesn't win next year, he's next in line. But
That's
yeah.
exactly what. And I'm a Michigan fan, so that's exactly where. That's exactly what I was telling him. Is he's like, you know what? I'm better off going to Ohio State, seeing Ryan Day fuck up, and then make sure I take the job because I know if he loses to Michigan this year, I'm right in line where I need to be.
Yeah.
Oh man! So actually, let's jump into some of these questions. It's
Cool.
Zamia Rahman said, "How can high school athletes best prepare themselves for the transition to college athletics amidst the new landscape of NIL and the transfer portal?" Um, so I'll answer it first, and then you can
Sure.
chime in if you want. So Zamia, I would ask you to be a little more specific with your question because for me personally, I knew exactly what school I wanted to go to when I was a junior in high school. I wanted to go to Hofstra University, and first of all, my grades were terrible, and I only played one position on the football field. So I knew my high school coach told me I wasn't going to get a Division I offer, even though I didn't want to listen to him. But what happened was he told me that if I could walk on in the program and be good, and there's nothing wrong with me walking on. So if you get a specific, and what actually ended up happening is I walked on at Stony Brook, and Hofstra's program actually got cut because of budgets, because they didn't have the funds like Stony Brook. So what I would tell you is to get very specific on what school you want to go to, be very intentional about where you want to go there, why you want to go there, what you want to study there, what exactly you want to do for the university, how you can help the university in any way. Make sure you know those specific answers, and then pursue your school for that reason. All right. The NIL money will come. And if obviously you won't need to worry about the transfer portal because you would have it locked in your mind where it is you want to go for the right reason. So
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think, with a lot of these opportunities that are presented, I think I'm an advocate for taking advantage of opportunities that are given to you. And honestly, I feel like from a high school athlete standpoint, with them going into looking at what school do I want to go to next, and I would say evaluating what are the ultimate goals of that individual, right?
mm-hmm.
Um, and not having a one-track mind on it too. Don't think about it like what's this school that's going to give me the best opportunity to make money. Like if you
Right.
go into it that way, you're probably going to set yourself up for failure. If you think about it from a holistic standpoint, like I want to be able to develop as a student athlete, I want to be able to set myself up for opportunity to make it to the pro level, or I want to develop myself to get the degree that I want to get,
Yes.
to be able to be successful in my next step. and also look at where the best opportunity allows me to set up a brand for myself. Because honestly, I feel like this. What's really happening with this is giving you a chance to build your own personal brand as a person, as an athlete. And if you know how to do that well, that is great. But a lot of the athletes, I would say, don't. So thinking about like, how can I go into a situation where I can show my leadership skills, where I can show the talents and the traits that I have that can help me, propel me to whatever I do next, whether I make it to the pros or whether I, get a new job and I have to do something after this, you know, taking advantage of the opportunities and the resources that are being given to you, because I think that will grow. That's one thing we haven't talked about, is that um, while there is a lot of unknown and there's a lot of unregulated things, I do feel like the support from a learning, development, literacy standpoint, that support mechanism will grow from the athletic departments.
Yep.
So you have to go in there being willing to take advantage of all of that knowledge so that
Mm-hmm.
you can set yourself up, because to a certain extent, you're going to be more like a product than you ever were before.
Yeah.
You're going to go in, they're going to use you as a person is going to help them win, and they know that there's a bunch of other athletes that can transfer in at any time if you're not doing what they want to do. So you got to be a little selfish in the standpoint of like, how can I support what I want to do next? Obviously, I still want to be able to win. I'm still old school. Like, I want to go and part of the team. I want to win, and I want to contribute to that. But you definitely got to take advantage of the resources and opportunities that get presented to you, and be willing to have a game plan and a goal. Don't just transfer because, oh man, I'm not playing well. Like I don't like this coach. Like that's not going to set you up for success in life. Like you're not going to like a lot of things that happen, and somebody's going to do something that you do not agree with. If you quit every time, that's not going to help you to, be able to prepare yourself for life. I think you have to figure out what your goal and your game plan is, and be intentional, as Aswad mentioned, in what you want to do next, because that will help you to like build yourself up and learn and develop and grow as a person more so than just a student athlete.
And I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but the questions that Zamia asks was what are the potential implications. That pretty much answered it. So yeah, we pretty much answered. So Zamia, the main thing I would main to help to better serve you is to make sure you stay in contact, reach out to whether it's myself or Steve, and give us specifically about what your plans are, where you are in high school. And one of the things I do actually say in my book, and this is important for every high school athlete to hear, is you got to be good enough. All right, that's something that doesn't get mentioned a lot. You have to actually have the ability to play at the collegiate level, and you got to have people around you that are going to be honest. The same way my coach told me, look, as one, you are at 2.2 grade point average. You played one position on the field. No Division I program is going to take a risk on you. I had to find out the hard way, but I have to tell you guys as high school athletes, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is going to be good enough to play at the collegiate level, and that's going to be something that you have to take into consideration as well, because even if you do go D3 nowadays or you're at a D2 school, that's a great opportunity. You can make NIL money at the D3 and D2 level, and it's less red tape. You can go do what you got to do, and you could be, again, the intention of it is going to be so much more important for you. So, uh, with all that, Steve, I knew this would happen. I knew exactly we were going to go over time, but that's just part of the deal here. I do want to give you the microphone to talk a little bit about your business,
Yeah.
Strive Higher After Sports. I don't know if it got mentioned at all, but the microphone is yours to kind of plug away and tell people how they get in touch with you, what you plan on doing, and what the future holds for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, in my business, what we are focused on is supporting the athlete in their well-being in their full life, specifically as they get prepared to transition and are part of that transition in life outside of sports. There are plenty of things that we learn and develop as athletes that are transferable for us to be able to take with us throughout the rest of our lives, but part of it really is helping to pick up the pieces of our identity, I would say, given that we pour a lot of time and attention, as we just talked about NIL and transfer portal and trying to pick the right school to go to. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to pour a lot of time and energy into that. And you probably already have, from a standpoint of being a kid to now. And because you poured a lot of time and attention into it, sometimes you forget of all of the other things that you developed along the way. And part of my goal is to help you to realize that and help you to uncover all of the things that are already there to empower you to, pick up yourself, rebirth yourself in the way of creating the new identity of who you want to be outside of the life of sports. It will always be a part of you. It's always a part of me. It's always a part of Aswan. There that part of that legacy and that journey that you took is what helps you to grow. But there is this community of people, and I'm part of that. And my organization is really geared towards helping you, elevate your mind and continue to grow outside of this life of sports in a way that helps you feel fulfilled, take advantage, like I mentioned before, take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to yourself, but really go out there and explore and love the opportunity to learn and grow. Adapting that mindset helps you to take advantage, like I said, of things that do come, but also helps you to appreciate, some of the small learnings and failures that you may have. All of us are going to fail. That's part of life. But if you change your perspective on what failure is, I like to call it like falling ambitiously in line. You are really looking at how do you align yourself to where you want to go and how you want to grow. And working alongside with me, I want to help you to continue to strive higher in your efforts to go to where you want to go, but continue to explore the possibilities. There's endless possibilities outside of just sports, but you have a lot of things that you can take with you in that life of sports to help you enhance the things that you want to do elsewhere. So you can learn more about me at strivehigheraftersports.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at shed SHED_av on Instagram. And I'm continuing to help athletes in their journeys and really helping you to design a fulfilled life after sports.
Amen to that, my man. I almost forgot I was interviewing you for a second, man. I was just kind of locked in. I was locked in listening to what you said. I look forward to connecting. Shout out to Taj, man. We got to get you on one of these Sundays because, again, you were the one that kind of made this connection happen with Thrive After Sports. And all the people that are in the comment section, appreciate you guys. I'm reading through them. Appreciate you. Again, this content comes out every single day. I put a video out every single day. If you want more info on me, it's at d1transfer.com. Book Transfer in D1 is available for pre-order, and we're here to help. We're open resources here to help. I hate to see the sport that gave me an identity. I hate to see it in the place it's in. So we're here to help and figure out ways in which we can make it so you're at the right school and you're right in the right situation, and you're just finding your place. You don't look at sports as something that is a negative. It's actually going to be a positive in your life, just like Steve said. So with all that, I'll let you guys enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. I am picking the Chiefs, but again, I'm a Redskins fan, so I would like to see my team at least relevant. he shook his head.
They're the Commanders now, sir.
Commanders fan. I don't know what the hell I call them these days. I just want some damn wins. All right, shit. I mean, we gotta go back. Whatever it is, just get some wins. All right. Anyway, appreciate you guys tuning in, Steve. Appreciate your brother, man. We're gonna stay in touch for damn sure, and we're gonna just keep it going, guys. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We'll talk more soon.
All right. Thank you.
Boom, boom, boom.